Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Ag Newsmaker interview here today. I'm Lorrie Boyer, and my bestie here, Michelle Staley, back at it with me.
Hello.
We haven't done a Zoom interview for a long time.
No, we haven't. It's been a long time.
Well, we're going to have fun with this interview, and Michelle's joining me for a special reason because we are visiting with her nephew. So how about if you introduce him?
All right. Well, this is such a huge honor. I'm just super stoked and excited for him. So proud of him. I have the Colorado State FFA treasurer for 94-95, Aiden Datteri with us. Woohoo!
Congratulations, Aiden.
Thank you.
I've heard a lot about you, so I feel like I know you.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, tell us about yourself. Tell us about, or tell me, I guess. Michelle
Sure,
knows about you, but tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background.
Yeah, as you said, this year I'll be serving as the 24-25 state treasurer for Colorado here. And that's an amazing opportunity. I'd say the thing that got me into that is that I do come from an agricultural family. I've grown up here in Greeley, but that being said, I don't live on a farm, right? But I am a fifth generation Colorado agriculturalist. And so my family's been tied in with beef and production agriculture for a very long time, nearly a century. And it's just been a huge part of my life growing up, and all of my values kind of center around that idea of, what's on the farm and everything there. So it's definitely a family tradition to be doing the things I do now.
Not only a family tradition for the agriculture side, but Michelle here was also a state FFA officer. So
Yes.
you've got some really good mentorship going on over here.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that I do.
Remember 92, 93. Now I'm going to date myself, and look what I brought along.
Oh man, we got the good jacket.
Let's see. There we go.
There you go.
It might fit you. I don't know if it fits me.
And the jackets still look the same, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can go grab mine here for you.
Yeah, you should. There's no, I don't think. Nope.
Let's show them the front. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, it's the same setup. Same setup.
And they're still the same warm jackets, but it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
such an honor to wear the blue and gold. So
And they're still corduroy.
They're still corduroy. Yeah. They tried to change that actually. I want to say it was in 99 at National Convention. They met up to change it to blue blazers, but everyone loved the tradition of corduroy so much that we decided to keep it the same. It's just way more recognizable.
Yeah, with so many things changing in the world, it's nice
Yeah.
to have something stay the same, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I do have to share with Aiden's agricultural background. He's been in 4-H for how old were you when you started with that?
I started technically when I was 7, but then they have that like clover buds before you can become an official 4-H member. And so I was really involved in 4-H since I was 4 years old. So that would make it 14 years now.
Grand champions. I think you've done some interviewing with that grand champion rabbits, and he knows a thing or two. This kid works his tail end off because he's got lots of chores.
I sure try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you served well, obviously you have. What leadership positions have you held in your FFA chapter? And I guess I should have asked you that. What chapter are you from?
Greeley. Yep. Greeley chapter. Housed out of Greeley West High School. And so, yep, that is nearly a 100-year-old program in a school that only goes back to the 60s. And that's because it started off as Greeley High School at a sister location, basically. And then when they built the new school, they moved the program over. So, yeah, it started off with that Smith-Hughes Act stuff. Anyways, that kind of got off on a tangent. At the chapter level, though, I've held a few different positions. Of course, this past year I served as president, and then before that, sophomore and junior year, I served as the vice president, or one of many vice presidents for our chapter, since we have just such a huge program over there. It topped off at 614 members the other year, and so we hold a lot of offices over there and make sure we have enough people in officer positions to keep it as a well-running, well-oiled machine. So
Well, it's nice to know that program is staying nice and strong and continuing to bring more people in, because not all FFA chapters are doing that well.
Right. There's been a lot of teachers moving in and out, and I think that's the hardest on membership. And so that really is the root of it. But we've had some amazing teachers here these last couple years. And one of our newest teachers, actually, Miss Grimes, she has become a national FFA ambassador.
Oh.
And so that's pretty cool to see. Just the program staying strong with teachers, and that only helps the members.
Yeah, so another thing, back to your background there, Aiden,
Mhm.
you might know his grandfather pretty well, Gene Manuelo.
I do know.
So that's
Dean.
where a lot of the history comes from as well.
Yeah.
And of course, his grandparents, the Datteris, have a farm background as well. So
Yeah.
it's pretty ingrained. And then of course, Granddaddy, he had farm background too. So it's been a while since he's been in the fields, but he did have
Sure.
that too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
What made you decide to run for state office?
Oh, well, there's a couple factors to that. I think when I look at that blue jacket, it's always been about family for me. And although technically first in my bloodline, right? Like Michelle and I, we're cousins and everything. And so I'm not the first in my entire family to wear the jacket and run for state office, but I'd be the first in my own bloodline here to be doing that. And so third generation FFA member, but the first to actually run for state office. And I think the biggest thing that really pushed me to do that is the same thing I said in interviews. FFA was always a place where I could go to feel like I was finally accepted and wanted in an organization and on any kind of team. And I want to make sure that members can feel that same way, and that I make that same impact and influence on others to make sure, everyone has a spot in FFA.
Now, I know a lot of people who are familiar with FFA are going to know this, but for people who don't, what
Sure.
does the team do? What is your responsibilities? What will you be engaging in over the next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. For Colorado, especially, that state officer position is a growing list of responsibilities. As it relates to FFA and the association, we will make chapter visits throughout the year, attend a bunch of the state ag conferences, and then also all of the foundation events and help out there as kind of employees in one way or another. And then at the end of our term, we plan and then host the state convention. And so that's a week of just leadership and sessions, as well as some workshops thrown in there. And of course, we can't forget those competitions that run wild in FFA. But then for Colorado specifically, one of the cooler opportunities we have as state officers is to now serve as the CSU Spur interns. And because of our partnership with Colorado State University, we are able to live in those dorms down by the National Western Stock Show for completely free. All we have to do is put in a couple hours a week as their interns and make sure all of their events are running smoothly as well.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
That is
Yeah,
very cool.
for sure.
We did not have that opportunity.
Yeah,
That
that
would have been
started up
really cool. Would have been
3
really
years ago
cool.
now. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
very neat.
that'd be a great opportunity. Oh, and you have the stock show. Aren't you guys there for 2 weeks?
That's
Doing
correct.
all
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. So as far as all of the showing events go, we have both Colorado State Fair. And so that'll be our first big event. And that's a full 2 weeks for us. So we show up before livestock and everything gets there to make sure, we're set up and getting the barn set up to house animals. And then we also host a number of things at Stock Show. With the Spur campus being so close, we're giving tours that whole week and making sure that we're getting that outreach piece there. And then for both State Fair and National Western Stock Show, we're at the nursing centers, or kind of just a petting zoo type situation, although it's hands off and very, very much smaller animals. And so that's just a bunch of opportunities to really reach out and make sure that we do our part in bridging across the rural and urban divide there, and making sure that there's enough outreach and advocacy for agriculture from, our perspective as, the future of agriculture.
Any plans as of yet? This might be a question we have to ask you later, to run for a national office.
I'd definitely be interested. Being a Betcher recipient as well, that makes the process a little bit harder to navigate in case I did want to do that. But I've recently spoken with a couple national officers myself, and I'm proud to say that one of them is my good friend now, Morgan Anderson.
Oh, cool.
And she's this year's Eastern Region Vice President. And so it's just been a been a blessing to get to know a few of them and really meet, you know, those kinds of people and see how big of an impact and how big of an influence that any person can have on their members. And even me specifically, it's always been a tradition for me, but I think they bring a whole different level of, you know, giving and service to the organization. So it's definitely something that I would like to do if given the opportunity.
Well, speaking of which, everything, I believe, just goes hand in hand with everything, Aiden. And
Sure.
not only did you get a state office when you were down in Pueblo, you had a couple of other big awards, correct?
Yeah, it was a good year for me down at convention.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead and
I
share.
was sure I was fortunate enough to win State Star Farmer this year, as well as the prepared public speaking event. And so I'll actually be competing at nationals just one last time here for prepared public speaking. And so it's a huge blessing and an honor for both of those.
Very good. Do you get to pick your own topic?
I do, yeah. Um, at state, I competed with a speech on food labeling. I call it Feeding the Truth, and it's really just about promoting transparency in agriculture. I think I want to keep the same topic, but I might switch the speech up going into nationals. So we'll have to
Okay.
see.
Yeah,
Good.
cool.
Now, where I grew up, graduated from Lafayette, but I grew up in between Longmont, Lafayette. We did not have an FFA chapter. So I did 4-H. I was very involved in 4-H. I held all the offices and did the whole thing. Went to state, did all that. But I was not actually an FFA because we didn't have a chapter. Now, my boyfriend was an FFA and I attended a lot of things with him. So I'm very familiar with it. But I want to ask you, going back to the process at convention, and maybe both of you, I can kind of compare and contrast here.
It's been a few
Yeah.
years, but
I understand that running for state officer, and I've interviewed a lot of officers. I've been doing this for 26 years now, well, 27 years, I guess now. And every single one of them has told me how intense it is. You don't really know till the very end where you stand. It's just a lot of extra on top of the things you're already doing. So I want to hear about how this process works. How do you run? What do you do when you're there? And then I want to compare it to Michelle's experience.
Sure. Yeah. The biggest thing that I've always thought about is that the running process didn't start when I got down to Pueblo. When I was running for office and going into interviews, I think the interview is all 4 years that you're in FFA, or however long that you were in FFA for, right? And that's because it takes a lot of work to even gain the skills and knowledge of the organization. And it can't just be something that you decide to run for state office and that's when you start learning about the organization. That's when you start learning about the history. I think all of that definitely started freshman year for me. And then, of course, interviews were going. I think my first mock interview I had was in January of this year. And so that was 5 months prior to when I was actually going to be interviewing for the position. And so there's a lot of mock interviews and a lot of different crowds you have to speak with and make sure that you really do have a good grasp on what it's going to take to be a state officer and what kind of influence and impact you want to have on the membership. And then when you get down to Pueblo, you're already basically one round in. Because you have to submit your application and that will have been read before you would even get down to Pueblo. So the nominating committee of 9 members has gone through your application and they're already queued up on what kind of questions they're going to ask and what kind of team they're going to be looking for by the time you get down to Pueblo. And so when you're in Pueblo, though, you have 4 more rounds of interviews. That starts off with one-on-one interviews where you'll talk just one-to-one from interviewee and the nominating committee member. And then when you move into these next rounds, you'll have a business and industry meeting is what they call it. And so that's 5 minutes of just conversation material about any topic of their choosing in agriculture or ag education for that matter. And then the next round of that is the stand and deliver. And so that is another 5 minutes of speech followed up with a round of questioning. And then your last day is what they call personal round. And so Sunday morning, still before convention even kicks off, or sorry, Monday morning before convention kicks off, they're asking you some of those more personal questions and getting to know you not only as an agriculturalist and FFA member, but simply more as a person. And so that closes off all of your interviews. And that night, the nominating committee makes their decision on who the 10 people on the team will be and what their positions will be. And then they send off the jackets. I actually think this part's interesting. They send the jackets off that night to Texas. And so there's express shipping to make sure that you have your jackets in hand by Thursday morning.
Oh,
And then Thursday, at the very last session of the week, that's when you finally find out if you've made the team or not after, a full week of interviewing and competing and whatever else you might be involved in. So,
and then if I understand right, you don't know what position you get until the final announcement, right?
you don't know position or if you've even made the team until the
Oh, okay.
announcement.
Okay.
Everything is kept super secretive by that nominating committee, and the only people who know that decision are the ones in the room. So,
Okay. All
yeah.
right. Now, how does that compare to when you competed?
Well, some of the parts I'm like, let's see if I can remember. It's been a
Sure.
bit. So I did it a little bit differently. I graduated high school and I went on to college for 2 years at the Art Institute and got my associates there. So I did a little bit different. I'd always wanted to run, but I don't know, at the time I was like, I just need to go to school. And then I moved back home to take care of Matt, keep him in line. You know what I'm talking about.
He needs it. Yep.
His uncle. Anyhow, just kind of had to help out with some things around there because our mom passed away my junior year and Matt was younger. So anyhow, I moved back home and I was like, I think I want to run for a state office. It had always been a goal of mine. And so I was actually turned 21 when I was a state officer. I was the oldest officer on the team. And so I don't recall, I think most of the interviewing went on like all 3 days when we were there. And you know a lot about the nom-com committee because have been on it once or twice.
Just once last year. Yeah.
Do you think that helped prepare you for running?
I really don't believe so. A lot of people are concerned on whether or not that gives you an edge. I think the only thing that experience really gives you is the idea of the things that you didn't enjoy hearing. As far as question material and rubrics, that changes every year. So you're not really sure what'll come up. And even with that, you're only one of 9 nominating committee members, so you don't know what the other 8 rubrics in the room even were for that year. So just because that keeps changing in the way that it's made sure so that you don't have the full list of information available to you, I wouldn't say that it's a easy process to just go from nom-com to an office. And even with that, the things that you learn in nominating committee are more about how to be a good nominating committee member, and not so much about, what it looks like to run for state office.
That's interesting.
Well, and I just remember we had to wait till the last session as well, and it was very nerve-wracking because you don't have a clue. Like,
Yeah.
And I believe the executive committee members are called first, right? They're usually
Yes.
first called.
Yep.
So, I got to know right away, but some of them that had to wait till the last, like Lance Nichols is president, and some of the other guys, pretty nerve-wracking, but it's an amazing experience. I wasn't able to be in Pueblo with Aiden, but I had him. I was watching the live feed from Barn Media on Facebook, and actually the phones were a little bit slower, so I was able to watch, and I don't know, it takes you right back. I mean, obviously a lot of things, they've gotten a lot fancier.
Yeah.
With the stage presence and, just different things that go on there, but just that excitement, I saw the excitement on your face and it took me back how excited I was. And it was kind of cool because my dad was there and was able to see me get nominated, and it's just an amazing experience. And then we hit the ground running.
Yep.
We hit the
I
ground.
do.
Yeah.
So you've talked about the experiences that you're going to be having, the things you're going to be doing. What life skills do you anticipate you're going to be picking up in addition to what you've already learned serving as an officer for your chapter?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot there. Just because I think the experience is so elevated, and already going through training and everything, I've learned a lot more, not only about leadership and what it means to serve, but also just about myself and how to handle myself on a team. especially a team of this kind of caliber, right? Because there's a lot of responsibility. And that means that you got to be your best so that you can actually be better for the members. With that, I think the most that I'll learn this year is not only just about myself, but through that growth, also growing kind of my skill set around business and networking, just because of how many opportunities that you're able to do with business partners and sponsors. I think that that's going to help me a lot. And of course, that's what I want to go do when I'm done with state office is start up with business. So.
What are life skills you feel like you learned when you were an FFA state executive committee officer?
Right. Well, I would say obviously interview style, that kind of helped me through all these years, and also motivational speaking. I've done it for a lot of years. Sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes we
Yeah.
get asked to do it. You and I do a lot of it together. So I think it's helped with that. And just, I don't know, just being able to talk to people, and I don't know, it just brings you to a different level. Like, cause
Yeah.
you're influencing a lot of people when you're in that state office, and it also, it's prestigious. So it's very cool. And it was one of the best years of my life. That's all I can
Yeah.
say. I'm so excited for Aiden. And I mean, he's even a better public speaker than what I am. So he's gonna do amazing.
I try to be. No.
Aiden, I have to ask you, I'm not exaggerating. Okay, I've been doing this a long, long time. Every
Sure.
single FFA person, both officers and non-officers, say one word in there that you said that anytime you say FFA, it coincides with the word leadership.
Mhm.
How do you define leadership?
I think that everyone wants to say that FFA is based around servant leadership, and that's true. But I think that the thing we forget about servant leadership is that it takes so many different forms. It's not about just leading by example, but it's also about picking up those tasks that no one else wants to do, and really making sure that when you're talking service, you're talking about things that you've grown on yourself. And so I think the biggest aspect of leadership in FFA and the reason that the organization was made was in those opportunities of growth. And so I think that coincides very well with not only the mission of FFA and the idea of personal growth, but also just with what it means to be a leader. It's that continuous growth cycle.
Right, continuously learning. And
Yes.
like you are alluding to, being humble. I think that's so important.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, I would agree. It's service leadership is not for yourself, right? And that's why you're willing to do the tasks no one else is
Yeah.
wanting to do. You have to
I
be
say
humble.
that to myself, Aiden, when I'm running for leadership roles or serving, I always say you got to have a servant heart. If you don't have a servant heart, why are you doing it?
Right. Yeah.
And I will
Yeah.
say with all the teams throughout the years, I mean, it's kind of cool to watch the last session, because I was able to see Kit Noshna, he retired, Don Thorne. So they were talking about that they were just there a year before in Pueblo before they got their state office. I was there when they won state office, and I can remember just like it was yesterday, and look at the leadership roles that they have provided for, I don't even know how many years it's been now, but leadership roles and a servant heart, because it's a lot of work. I mean, my FFA advisor, Dennis Everhart, was one of the most amazing men. I've always looked up to him. He's no longer with us. But you put a lot of hours into the kids, and it is a servant heart all the way around. And Todd grew up seeing how much that Dennis put into it. And of course, Todd is a advisor over in Marino. And it takes a person that's willing to be a servant, have a servant heart, and help, because that's what they do. So, and
Yeah.
with your new advisor, or is he considered advisor?
Mrs. Bailey. Yes.
This is Bailey.
Yes.
Okay. And then,
Yes. State advisor.
right. And then what role does Mr. Staley play?
Mr. Staley is the director of the FFA Foundation. So it's set up a little different now with the foundation because of that. So he is the head of the foundation, but in terms of association influence, he really he doesn't he works with us, but he doesn't give us those marching orders unless it's his
Mhm.
event. And
Gotcha.
so,
Makes
yep,
sense.
every day-to-day and FFA related business goes to Mrs. Bailey.
Gotcha. Very cool. And Mrs.
Yeah.
Bailey is from where?
She just finished up teaching at Windsor.
Oh, cool.
She
Very
was
cool.
here, so I used to have her kids and interview her. So she started out as a brush. I think started out in brush, but she was here in brush for a number of years.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, she was, I think she put 3 years, her first 3 years until,
Yeah,
I know she wanted to make that move to Windsor because she'd also student taught there from what I understand.
yeah. And Windsor actually has 2 FFA chapters. That's how big they are.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, they have 2 high schools with 2 FFA chapters. Well,
Yeah.
Miss Bailey will do great at that. She's always been supportive of communications and radio. And
Yeah.
of course, I appreciate that. It makes my job easier.
Right.
Yes, and we've interviewed Mike Staley before, so is
I
it
do
Mike?
not know.
What is it? What's
John.
John Staley, excuse
Yeah.
me.
He spells it
Yeah.
differently too.
He does spell it differently. You're
relation
right,
here.
sorry.
Kind of
She's
right.
right. But yeah, and he's part of my Colorado Communications Council, so we keep up to date.
Sure.
Beyond FFA, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I want to go back into agriculture. Otherwise, what has this all been about, right? But all jokes aside, I really do want to invest my time and skill set back into the industry, and especially into Colorado agriculture itself. I haven't made my mind quite up. You know, my idea is that I'd go into business, but I'm going to keep my options open, and I think that's mostly because I don't know what kind of experiences or conversations I'll have yet this year. And so I want to do whatever's best for the industry. And really that is back to that idea of what have I learned as a leader after this year if I'm not still continuing to serve and doing the things that other people might not be willing to do. And so I want to make sure that I'm putting myself in that position for what's best for Colorado agriculture, whatever that might be.
Let's see here. So you're gonna be, I can't believe you've graduated. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, you've graduated.
Yeah.
So as far as leadership roles as well, Aiden, it's gonna open up so many doors for you.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of the members on my team. I don't know if you know Richard Fagerlin. I mean, he has had an amazing career. Motivating and leading folks. I don't even know how many years it's been now, maybe 20 years, just amazing. And then of course, you know, Lance Nichols, you know, he's an auctioneer and still there's that servant heart there. So I just think it's great. I'm super proud of you. And when Lorrie texted me about this, I was like, oh my gosh, that's absolutely, yay.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to mention that we haven't talked about or asked about that you feel is important?
I can't really think of anything other than I'd be shamed if I didn't say there's always a place for whoever's listening here. If you're interested in getting involved, please do. There's more than just sponsorships. There's a lot of partnerships that come into play. Of course, if you're looking for some marketing opportunities, there's a lot of that, not only at our events, but also with state convention opening up the hall to actually allow businesses in for their fair. And of course, just a lot of opportunities at both the district and chapter level as well. If you're not looking for a statewide partnership, I know chapters are always looking for new business sponsors and support. So,
Well, obviously, I don't know you the way Michelle knows you,
sure.
but I can just, in our last few minutes, we've been talking, I don't know where my timer's at, but we've been talking here for a little while.
Yeah.
You are going to go far and you are going to leave an unbelievable legacy.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Very cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Let's see, I had something, but
Well, you've got your mentor right here all the time,
Yeah.
just to text away
Yes.
that what a great opportunity. And I know that a lot of times family members do kind of follow each other in this, but here you are with this person. And I don't know if the rest of your team has that or not, but you've got a pretty amazing person right at your fingertips all the time. How lucky you are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I promise the team is just as good as, if not better than I. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have a question. When do you move over?
Oh yeah, we all live together throughout the year now, and so we move in July 8th here. So just
Oh,
under
that's great.
2 weeks out from today. That's what that is. So
Are you
yeah.
excited?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A couple past teams have said it's a whole nother layer of having to work through, some things as a team.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
that's
we
because
didn't
your
live
roommates on
together.
top of teammates. So yeah,
Yeah, we didn't live together. We got a little break, but
right.
well, that could be, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think the opportunity that you guys have to live together will only make you even stronger as a team.
Sure. Yeah, I believe so. It's at that point you're not just teammates, you're really a true family for the year, living together day in and day out.
And how does that work with the advisor? Do they, obviously they still live at their home with their family, but
Yes.
do they just come to the campus a certain amount of times during the week, or are they required to be there? What does that look like?
Yeah, pretty regularly for meetings. Miss Bailey will come in, but one thing that she's already kind of told the team is she's not here to hold our hand. And that's, I think that's a good thing. We've been elected to the position for a reason. And I do believe that. And I believe that the team has all of the capabilities to be able to handle a variety of issues. And the advisor is not there to make the decisions for us. And so it's good that the team is together, but by no means do we expect Mrs. Bailey to be making the drive every day. So
And okay, one more. They're coming to me
Sure.
now. Do you know yet what chapters you're going to be visiting? What area?
no, I don't know yet. That gets divided up here in a couple months still. Um, yeah, we're not quite sure. All I know is that I'll be assigned to a partner, and that's going to be who travels with me for the entirety of chapter
wow.
visits. So
Wow.
yeah,
We didn't have that either. That's
no,
cool. That's cool.
yeah.
And how are the parents doing with you moving already?
Well, my parents seem to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Uh, my mom's actually got a new job to where she'll be moving here herself. And so it's just another step of change, but nothing that wouldn't be happening anyways if I was off to college this year. So
That is true. That is very
yeah,
true. Yeah.
Well, Aiden, we appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, and be sure to tell Miss Bailey that you were on with us
of course.
and tell her
Yeah,
hi.
thank you so much. Yeah, I sure will. Well,
And
thanks for
we
having me
welcome
on.
other interviews as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyone else interested in interviewing Lorrie? He's got the platform for it. So then,
sure. I was gonna say, President Leidy, yeah?
I do, yep,
Yeah.
yep. My
She's
husband
scheduled up for
graduated
an
her
interview
mom.
quite yet?
I have not had her on yet, no, but I think her mom never thought that my husband would ever get married. So when he met me, I think she kind of took her by surprise that Brian actually found a wife, and here I am. But in the big town of Maclay, where
Oh yeah.
maybe 10 people graduate a year.
Yeah. Big class
But
sizes.
she's a go-getter, just like her mom. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, Aiden. Well, we'll let you go. Thanks for making time for us in your busy schedule.
yeah.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Aiden.
Thank you.
Take care.